trouble, which I'm not date setting here, but I just don't think it's too far off, uh, then Mystery Babylon is destroyed overnight with what seems to be nuclear annihilation.
Sure.
Now, if that be the case, and there's some people who, like myself, feel that is true, they're leaving the country.
Yeah.
You know, and I've thought perhaps about maybe going to Canada, but I think you'd have to have the Lord lead you in doing that to know when to do that and how to go about doing that.
Hmm.
And of course, some of us are going to be here. What part of the country to go to hunker down? You mentioned the mountains. Well, if
Yeah.
you're in Wyoming, might not be where you want to be
Yeah.
if we're attacked. And then this is my feeling is that at some day in the future, with America being Mystery Babylon, I believe we'll be attacked by Russia,
Yes.
and it'll be an all-out nuclear exchange.
Hmm.
There, you're going to have leading to know where to be because you've got fallout situations beyond the actual strikes themselves.
Yeah.
So, rather than of course, the Bible gives the warning to come out of Babylon.
Hmm.
So that's one answer is certainly to leave the country.
Sure.
I did. I was in touch when I was reading the other day. One group of people who've gone and left the country and gone to Costa Rica,
Okay.
but I couldn't necessarily advise that to everybody. And I think that one of the major problems is, although I think all of this is close at hand, I don't really can't tell you in what year all of this is going to start.
And that's a very good point, because we could end up being like the people that said, "Oh, he's coming," and sell everything, and then find out didn't happen. Because CK, we're seeing a lot of things happen, but who knows? The proverbial coffee can get kicked down the road like crazy, and we could be 20 years later than what we think it is.
Right. And I think that when we're talking about prepping, we need to keep in mind the whole picture is that one of the reasons we're prepping is what if a tornado comes through our community? Never has before, but
Yeah.
maybe what if it does?
Sure.
If we have a basement and we have some supplies in our basement, we might get to be the talk of the community in a good way.
Hmm. Well, and exactly, yeah. Back in I think it was back in '88 or '89 before we got to Cheyenne. They had such a major rainstorm come down that it sent a huge flood through Cheyenne. And actually, we have a hill on the north side of Cheyenne. We're on the higher part, and when the water came over the top, it basically flooded it, and it killed 3 or 4 people. They weren't ready. It was so bad. We had some friends that had told us about it. I mean, the water was so swift that people's clothes were being taken off. I mean, it was through. It was just such a fast mover. We've never had that since. We've had a tornado, and that might have been the tornado that happened at the same time. It came through where the mall now stands in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But it came through and it busted out quite a few, and people died. I believe it was 4 people, and I believe it was the mayor at the time. His daughter died. So,
Yeah, I think there's ample reasons to do things in preparation
sure,
for things at one time we might have taken for granted as just not happening.
sure,
Uh, Alabama just here recently had some tornadoes that came through, and the fellow next door to me had grown up in that same area, and he said he did not remember in his lifetime there ever being tornadoes in that area.
sure.
And I think, whether you call it global warming or, you look at it from a biblical perspective and say that the earth is moaning and groaning,
Hmm.
we're just going to see more of these things: landslides, volcanic activity, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes. Um, you name it, we're gonna experience more of it, and our economy is in quite a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
We are in a Great Depression.
Hmm.
Now, you might ask me, well, where are the food lines if that's the case? Where's all of the unemployment?
Yeah.
Well, it's there. Instead of food lines, we have food stamps,
Yeah.
and we have unemployment today that we didn't have in the 30s.
Hmm.
But if we did away with food stamps, government assistance, and unemployment, you would see the same thing you did in the 1930s because statistically, we have as many people unemployed now as we did in the 1930s if you figured it the same way.
Sure.
Modern mathematics is skewed. That's why it's only 8 or 9% unemployment, where really and truly, if you looked at it the same way you did in the 1930s, you'd be up around 23 to 25%.
Yeah. One of the things that really blows me away, we like to, during the summer, we like to go garage sailing and we'll look for things. And, it's kind of enjoyable to see what people got and stuff. But I'm amazed of the stuff that people will get rid of. And, of course, you can find really good prices where, it's a decent pair of boots, some shoes, whatever. Stuff that is not raw, that's tattered, but stuff that's almost like new that people will get rid of. Gloves, whatever. And CK, that's one way of a person is looking to not spend, well, because I mean a good pair of Red Wing boots right now, or you're looking at 200 and almost $50 for a good pair of boots now, where you could probably find a nice pair at a garage sale that someone barely wore.
I think that's true, and places like eBay still have some very decent deals on it. If you're familiar with eBay,
Hmm.
and one of the tricks to eBay, I have people every once in a while that'll tell me, "Well, I don't know anything about eBay." Well, the trick to eBay is looking at how many sales a particular seller has,
Okay.
and what his percentages are. If his percentage is anything less than 98.5%, you
Hmm.
leave him alone.
Okay.
You want people to have 99% and, say 100 sales.
Hmm.
That basically, what that's telling you is he's had no problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
But eBay a few years ago changed their ratings, and anything, like I said, less than 98.5% means, you would think 90% would be good, but it's really not. It means they've had more bad marks against them than what you want to deal with.
Sure.
So you have to be real careful about that. But there's still some very good deals on eBay. And like I said, if you're talking to somebody that's got 150 sales and he's 100%, whatever that article is saying that he's selling, whatever he's saying about it, it's true
Yeah.
because he's had no complaints.
Well, I've actually ordered some stuff for a vehicle, and I didn't realize it was coming all the way from China. It was just a small little box or something, and it came pretty darn quick, and it was pretty darn cheap with even free shipping, and it had good remarks on it, and it was just some little things I wanted to buy. But if I went to like a dealership, they would have charged me 10 times the amount, but I got it so much cheaper. And it was funny because they said, "Please leave me a good remark." They had a little business card on there, but no, they treated me really good.
Yeah, I've dealt with quite a few sellers that were from China or Hong Kong or something of that sort, which I generally don't get bothered with if they've got uh, a number of sales and they're all 99 or 100%.
Sure.
Now, if they're from Hong Kong or China and they got six sales, I wouldn't touch them with a long foot pole.
Yeah.
But and eBay used to be, I might mention this, used to be had some loopholes in it where unscrupulous people could make it seem like they had more references than they really did.
Sure.
But eBay has closed those loopholes.
Uh-huh. CK, and this is, I think you may find this very interesting. Years ago, and must have been, I'd say 7 years ago, 6 years ago on eBay, my wife and I were looking for a camper. And I'm like, let's just look on eBay. So I'm looking, and there was somebody, I think it was like in Kansas or Nebraska. So it was close enough for us to go look at it if we were like super serious. And of course, we got a chance to talk to the people. We looked at the pictures, and they sent us even more pictures. So we liked the camper. We started putting bids on and stuff, and of course the bidding went up. Well, it got to a point where like, okay, if it cuts at this point and it goes higher, we're not going to do it. Well, it got to that point, we backed out and someone else bought it. 2 days later, we got an email saying they were the same people saying, hey, such and such backed out. We'll give you a next offer of what you last bid. But our RV's in storage at this place. I'm in the military. I'm overseas. And I'm like, wait a second here. I know these people are in Nebraska or wherever, Kansas, whatever. And I know they're not in the military. And I talked to them personally. Anyways, I gave it to eBay and they said, yeah, it was a scam. So those are things that people have to watch out for.
Yeah, there have been some. Like I said, eBay has closed a lot of the loopholes. So I think eBay now is fairly safe for the uneducated to get involved with it.
Sure.
And certainly, if you're selling things, it's a good way to sell things. It will take some time to, when you first start, people won't pay as much attention because your sale number is so low.
Yeah.
But it is a good way to bargain back and forth. In other words, sell some things that you might have, even for prepping that wouldn't necessarily in what you need, that somebody else across the country may be able to use, and it may bring a higher value than if you tried to sell it locally.
That's very true. Very, very true. CK, um, what do you recommend for people to, like, let's say, storing like fuel, like maybe gasoline, kerosene, different things like that, propane? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think economy with thoughts like that are probably um, the biggest concern. If I think it depends too on how dedicated a prepper you really are. If I were really, really, really dedicated prepper,
Yeah.
what I would do is I'd have an automobile that would run off of both gas and propane,
Uh huh.
and I would store propane.
Yeah.
There are problems involved in storing gasoline and diesel fuel.
Mhm.
Propane can be stored for indefinite periods of time.
Mhm.
So if I were going to store a fuel, I would probably store propane, but a generator that runs off of propane or an automobile that can be converted to run off propane is more costly.
Sure.
So those are things that you have to take in consideration. Storing gasoline in small amounts is probably a doable thing if you've got enough space, but the problem, like I said, with it is it will go stale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know anybody delivering gasoline out to your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got some real problems with where that's concerned. Diesel fuel will keep longer, but the question is, do you have an automobile that will run on diesel?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. That was just something. I'm trying to think of things that people might be thinking of. Now, one of the things I've been told also is there's a website out there, and I don't remember it, but if you want to get ethanol-free gasoline, what I mean by that is most of the gas nowadays, it has 10% ethanol in it, and the ethanol kind of makes, I think, the gasoline go bad sooner, even with stable in there. But I've been, if you go on the website, I know there's one town here in Cheyenne that does have ethanol free. It's pure gasoline, which will last longer than the ethanol gasoline mix. I don't remember the website, but I do know that if you do a search, you can find it. Because I do believe that the ethanol free will last longer than the ethanol added into it, I believe.
Well, I watched Red. You know, you can run a generator off of wood that you can chop down out of your yard.
Hmm.
You can make a gas out of it and run it off of wood gas. My question, though, is, if you're talking about post-apocalyptic times, I don't know any way that you can store enough. Now we're talking about the average Joe. Now we're not
Sure.
talking about the person who has millions of dollars.
Yeah.
If you've got enough money, I would advise you to go out here and buy an abandoned missile silo
Yeah.
and put you in a condominium in that missile silo, have 20,000 gallons of water and 30,000 gallons of fuel, and